So today we're going to be looking at colors, and first we're going to start off with the basics. So if you look in your top right, where my finger's pointing right now, you're going to see a circle with a color filled in. This is always going to show you your active color, which is going to be the color that you're going to use to paint with. So if you see, I'm painting with this color that's in the top right now. Now if I click on this circle, this is going to bring up my color selection tool. And this is where you're going to find the place where you can sample colors, choose a color, play around with whatever color that you want. So we're going to start with the basics, and we're going to look in this bottom menu right here. And this is where you're going to find all of the options, all of the different menus that you can select. So starting on disk, it should already be selected for you, but if it's not, just touch the disk and this circle is going to show up. So on the outside of this circle, you can drag your finger around and you can choose any hue that you want. So it's kind of like a rainbow. So if I want a blue, I'm just going to drag right here and then release my finger where I want that color. In the inner circle, you can move your finger around and it'll show you some more options based on that hue. So you can go darker, more vibrant, or lighter. And then again, just let your finger go when you choose the color that you want. When you're moving this around, you can see on the right the color is changing in this tiny little circle right here, but on the left it's staying green. That's because the green color is my last color that I selected. So I don't need to worry about that unless I'm trying to plan a palette based on two different colors. So once we're done with the circle, and let's say we like the color that we're choosing, we can either go back and just start painting with it right away, or we can save it to a palette. So let's go into palettes really quickly. On the very bottom, and I got here by touching this circle up here, on the very bottom menu right here, you're going to touch palettes. And if you want to create a new palette, you go to the top where it says palettes, go to the very far right, and you're going to click this plus sign. And this menu will come up for different palette options. You're going to choose create new palette. That's going to create a blank palette for you where you can add all your colors in. So we'll go back to disk, and you can see under here, this is a blank palette where I can add all of my colors. So I'm choosing this color. I like that. I want to save it to my palette. So all I have to do is tap anywhere in this dark gray box, and that's going to save that color for me. I can go back to my palettes and you can see it's right there. I can also go down and look at all of these palettes and choose a color on here that I like, and then go back up to the top and just tap any square to save that color to my new palette. But let's go back to the color picker. So you have your palette down here that you're working with. You're in disk. Let's go to classic. Classic is going to have a few more options for you. It's a basic square format instead of a circle. So again, you can drag your finger around and let it go wherever you're happy with it. This rainbow bar is the same as the disc, the large circle on the rainbow bar. So you can move your finger and drag it on this bar, and that's going to choose different hues for you. Underneath this is a saturation meter, so you can either go less saturated or more saturated, and then there's the brightness meter, so you can go very bright or very dark. And you can also just move your finger around on this and let it go wherever you like that color. And let's say I like this blue, so I'm going to save it to my new palette. I'm just going to tap in this dark gray square. From here we can go to Harmony, which is right next to Classic. So we're going to click on Harmony. And this gives you different options of choosing complementary, analogous, tetratic colors. And you can see if I move my finger around this large circle, it changes these 3 colors for me. And that means that it's choosing, in this case, tetratic colors. So if I want to change these to complementary, I'm going to look right under colors. It says tetratic. I'm just going to tap that with my finger, and I'm going to choose complementary. And from here, we can move our finger around. And let's say I like these 2 colors together. So I just let my finger go, and you can tell it's the color selected because you can see in the very top right, that's the thumbnail of what color I have right now. So I want to save it to my palette, so I'm just going to tap in my palette, and that'll save that color. Let's say I want to save the complementary color, which is right here. I just tap on that little circle, and then tap in my palette again. You can also choose split complementary, analogous, triadic, and tetratic. You can move all of these. You can move the little circles too. And from here, we're going to go from harmony to value. This is one that I rarely use. This is helpful if you're creating a web page, if you're looking for an exact hexadecimal color number, but we don't have to worry about that right now. So palettes is the very last option. So if you look at this menu down here, you see palettes on the very far right. You're going to tap that, and it'll come up with compact and cards on the very top. Compact is going to be what you're working with mostly. So if you have compact selected, you can see all of your palettes, and just drag your finger to move it down and drag your finger to move it back up. You can also click these little 3 dots on the right, touch that. You can set it as your default. You can share the palette, duplicate it, or delete it. I'm just going to delete this palette. And you can also rename your palette. This is helpful if you have a lot of palettes, or if you're creating a palette from an image, which we'll go to in the next video. But to rename, all you have to do is tap on the title, and then you can rename with your keyboard. And the blue check to it, next to it, means that that's the palette you're working with. So wherever the blue check is, if you go back to disk, it's going to be it's called the default palette, or the palette that you're working with right now. So we go back to palettes, and we can also see next to compact, it says cards. And when you go to the cards option, this is going to show you the names and larger thumbnails of the colors that you're working with. And you can go all the way down to see all of your palettes and what colors you're working with, and the names of all of them. And that's it for the general overview of the color wheel and this option in the very top right. Next video, we're going to be going into palettes and how to create a palette from an image, how to create a palette based on a photo that you're taking currently, or how to paint directly on your face from the camera. So we're going to go into that in the next video.